good morning, everybody. Hey, it's Sunday, January 13th, 2019, and I'm still trying to get used to saying 2019, but how you guys doing? Well, I'm busy this morning getting ready for the kickoff meeting of the ABQwerty Type Writer Society, and so I have a little list of things that I've been working on as far as a meeting agenda, typing it with the Remington Quiet Writer, and I have to now decide which typewriters to bring. I'm going to bring a number of mine just for me to use, and also there may be a few people at the meeting that don't have typewriters, and at least I can share some during the meeting and all that. And I'm kind of getting a little bit more dressed up than my usual grubby jeans and a t-shirt, and I have one of my dad's bolo ties. My dad was a real collector of Native American jewelry, and this is one of his pieces. Anyways, my bolo tie. So, getting ready for the meeting, and it is cloudy outside, threatening a little bit of snow or rain, but that's not going to stop us today. Okay, so we have the Smith Corona Galaxy 12, Smith Corona Silent Super, Smith Corona Silent, Charger Brother 11, Facet 1620, Smith Corona Skywriter in the blue suitcase, and the Olympia SF in the shoulder bag. So that's a good little assortment of typewriters. I think it'll give everybody a little bit of experience with all these different kinds. I don't really have a true medium-sized portable like my Remington Quiet Writer. I was thinking of bringing it, but this is probably enough for now. And I'm also bringing some new ribbons in case somebody needs a ribbon installed. I'm bringing some correction tape and a selection of different kinds of typing paper and different kinds of paper that I use for typing. So just to give people some ideas, and also a few packs of paper if people want to pick them up from me. And it's a nice cloudy, slightly damp morning. It's trying to spit a little bit of snowflakes, just barely, but hopefully if it stays like this, it'll be okay. Shouldn't have any problems with the weather being an issue with the meeting, hopefully. So hopefully we'll have a good turnout. Well, I got about an hour before I got to be leaving here, so maybe I'll make me a cup of coffee or something. Anyways, I'm almost set. I have all the typewriters laid out, but I don't want to get them out in the car too early because otherwise they might get cold soaked, and that's not always good for the mechanics of them. Well, I was writing up a little list of items to talk about. This is my version of PowerPoint notes. So introductions, what we'll do, who I am, who my friend Kevin is, who we are in terms of our interest in typewriters, why we're starting this group, and my vision for the ABQwerty Type Writer Society, which I've sort of synopsized in this statement. A place to fellowship around the technology, use, and history of the typewriter, and a place to grow creatively as a writer with an emphasis on using the typewriter somewhere within the creative process. Hence the term Typewriter Society, two separate words, emphasizing both the typewriter and the writing part, two separate parts of that. And then next, I'd like to solicit ideas from the people there as to what they would want to see, what they would need, what they're hoping to see from the Typewriter Society meetings. And then I have a little section here I want to talk about is that I'm calling the mechanics of the society and the meeting. Kevin and I have talked about this earlier, and we don't really see the need right now for a formal membership like with collecting dues or anything. But we do think there may be times when we might want to fund special projects that the society is going to be doing, and so we may have fundraisers for those things, but we don't see ourselves collecting dues. We see it more as a loose affiliation. People can kind of come and go at the meetings as they wish. The frequency of the meeting, I'm thinking once per month is a good time. We don't want to drag them out too long between meetings because then people kind of lose interest. We don't want to have them too often because then they're just kind of burdensome to people's own private lives, etc. And I think for many of us, Sundays probably work pretty good. So the venue, we're going to be meeting initially at this Rust is Gold coffee shop. We hope it will go okay today, but we also might want to consider finding an alternate venue as a backup, or just a place to switch out our meeting place periodically, have several different places we can go to. And that's all based on the needs of having coffee or food, or maybe even adult beverages available. We don't know. And also the compatibility of the space, like in terms of the size, the seating arrangement, and if it's compatible with the kind of noise that typewriters make, and also whether or not the management kind of likes typewriters, which we believe the management of this place does. Then in the topic of meeting activities, what do we do during the meetings? Well, I see it a number of things. We can have, for instance, beginners sessions on the basics of typewriter use, typewriter care, how to type standard forms and documents in the classic way that typewriters were used, and then the simple maintenance of typewriters. And with this, I thought about maybe we could have a meeting at my house where we could use my workshop and people can bring over their typewriters and we can try to troubleshoot and clean them and see if they need more serious repairs that maybe I can't address directly, but at least we can figure out what they need. And then I also see things like having presentations by creative writers, especially writers who might use typewriters somewhere within their writing process, for instance, in the first draft writing. But we want to emphasize the writing part, the creative part of owning and using typewriters, not just the geekery around the hardware. And then we're thinking about society projects that we can do as a group. One of those is, well, first of all, merchandise. If we have creatives and visual artists, can we create t-shirt logos and have caps and stickers and artwork and stuff like that available? Also, maybe we could fund a bulk purchase of ribbons from Baco, or one of those suppliers of ribbons, for use by the members of the society. And then we're thinking, well, maybe we could do a field trip over to the local typewriter repairman, John Lewis, here in Albuquerque. Maybe a field trip to his shop if he's amenable to that. We're thinking about like outreach projects to schools, classrooms, maybe even senior centers. You could introduce kids to the whole idea of what a typewriter is, how they were used, and how typewriters can maybe help their process of learning and create a love for writing. And also for seniors, typewriters might bring back a lot of memories that might be good for them, and also help their physical skills, their motor skills. There was the idea of letter writing projects. I know other typewriter groups like the Austin Typewriter Inc. does a letter writing project to veterans, and that's a great idea, and we probably could get involved in a similar kind of project. Then there is the idea of a public poetry project. Maybe some of our members would be interested in doing sessions in public in different venues around the area, doing public poetry writing. And then, of course, type-ins. Myself and Kevin have been involved with numerous type-ins in the last few years, but maybe with more people available through the society to help us and support us, and also thinking about alternative venues, we can switch out our venues of where the type-ins are located, and have alternative coordinators for running the type-ins other than myself and Kevin that have fresh vision for what a type-in can be. And then there is the idea of doing something more specific on my YouTube channel about our society and the meetings, and interviewing individual members of our society who might have a long-term interest or some special connection with typewriters that might be interesting for other people to see. And social media, how do we publicize our society? How involved on Facebook and other kinds of social media do we want to be? How comfortable are the members of the society on social media? And it's the old question of balancing privacy with the opportunity of communicating to people more effectively. So then I'd like to have a session of inputs from the members about general questions, the feedback they can give and share with us. How many typewriters do you have? What kind do you want to have in your collection? What was your first typewriter? What is your earlier typewriter background or experience? Who amongst the group needs a typewriter? Who amongst the group has spare typewriters to either give, sell, or loan? And then I'd also like to have an open typing session. Just have people milling about typing, asking questions, answering questions, showing people how to use their machines if they brought one and they're unfamiliar with it. Just an open session, and then having a kind of opens, conclusions, and deciding on the next meeting place and venue. So that's kind of the agenda for the meeting today.
Item and item, then that is one item. Item and item is one item. There's a newsletter for our conference for years, and so we always colon and then like semicolons between the items.
Okay, now the semicolon.
I can, but have you?
Well, it's Sunday night, about 6:30, and we had a great time today at our kickoff meeting of the ABQwerty Type Writer Society. It was a little bit kind of lightly snowing all afternoon, but it was too warm for it to stick, so it was just basically wet roads, so no real issues. We did have one couple that didn't make it because of the weather, but otherwise, we had a pretty good turnout. I think we had 6 to 8 people, if I remember right. We had a good turnout of people. We had an older couple, really cute couple, who brought both of their Olympia Travelers typewriters. So they both had the 60s style angular Traveler typewriters. It was really cool. One couple, the lady brought a typewriter, an Olympia SM4. The gentleman didn't have a typewriter. And then another lady brought a Hermes 3000, the 1960s style, but it had a frozen carriage. Carriage is completely locked up, and we were unable to get it unlocked. So we referred her to John Lewis, a local typewriter repair shop in town here. But as far as the agenda items in what I had pre-prepared and typed up, we were able to cover most every one of those agenda items and got some good feedback from the group about maybe future plans and other things. But I really enjoyed the camaraderie that we had, and we had this sort of general typing session at the end of the meeting, maybe the latter half of the meeting. People just enjoyed playing with typewriters. Nothing serious necessarily, no serious hard literature or anything, but they were just enjoying their typewriters. And I went around the group and helped people with typewriters. The one lady, I was able to install a new ribbon and clean the type slugs and troubleshoot a problem with the ribbon lift on the Olympia SM4 wasn't going high enough up in the black position, but it was going high enough up in the red position because we're using a single color ribbon. So she needs a little bit of work done to that typewriter, but I did show her the basics of how to clean and lubricate and degrease her typewriter. So I think they'll be able to do that okay, and maybe a little adjustment to the ribbon lift. I showed them where that is. So our hosts at Rusta's Gold Coffee Shop and the New Mexico Artists Collective, they were really very gracious. They helped us set up an extra table and chairs and accommodated us, and they were really happy to have us there. So we're really pleased to have found a good venue, it would appear. Two specific things stick out in my mind as highlights from this meeting. One of those is that you might be surprised at the people who become enthused about typewriters and they didn't even know they were going to be. We had two people who just happened to show up for no particular reason and ended up getting really involved in sort of reacquainting themselves with typewriters from years ago and becoming excited about typewriters again, which I thought was really interesting. There's this latent interest maybe under the surface that's there, and this kind of venue re-energizes their interest in typewriters. So never underestimate the power of typewriters to re-energize a person's past experience. And then the second observation I'd make is there was an older couple, and they were cute. They were the ones that brought the two Olympia Travelers. It turns out this gentleman has, I believe he said 29 typewriters currently in his collection, and he's had upwards of 100, I think he said, at one time. He's downsized considerably. So these are people who are not hipsters by age or by social preoccupation. And they are older. They're older than me by a generation, I'd say. And so don't think that the typewriter revival is just unique to the the era of the aughts, the 2000s, and don't think it's unique just to young people, even though young people do make up a large part of the typewriter enthusiast crowd. But there are a whole number of hidden typewriter enthusiasts out there in our communities that we don't even know about, that we need these kinds of venues and organizations to help connect to them that otherwise we wouldn't connect to them because they're not on social media. And so I thought that was really powerful. And I'm really excited about in the future maybe interviewing this gentleman and his wife in more detail and finding out their past experience about typewriters and really finding out about his enthusiasm for collecting and what he really likes and what he sees in them. And I already know, for instance, what he's already told me today. He likes ultra-portable typewriters. So we have something in common there, and I thought that was really cool. So in closing, I wanted to encourage you guys, if you are interested in having a typewriter-focused organization, club, society in your community, you might find yourself having to take on the responsibility of organizing such a group yourself. And I would encourage you to try to do that. One of the things that really helped me was to sit down and kind of write out my vision for what I thought an organization such as that would be involved in. What would the meetings look like? What would you be doing? What would you be talking about? What would be the activities? What would be your goals, etc.? It would really be helpful for you to do that. Sit down and type those out. And then afterwards, you really want to find a practical venue for such an event. And so you have to do some kind of exploration around your community. Find that location that is hospitable, enthusiastic really about typewriters, and offers a venue that is compatible with the unique needs of a typewriter group. Seating, tables, the putting up with the noise of a typewriter, etc. So that's really important. And I would encourage you to do that. It's really worthwhile being able to connect in your community to fellow typewriter aficionados and helping to build up the community, the typewriter community in your area. And if you are seriously thinking about liking to start with such a community-based typewriter society or organization in your area, it really helps you if you have an accomplice, a helper, a participant alongside of you to really help pull the load. And I really appreciate my friend Kevin Kettle for all of his contributions. And we seem to each have our own particular strengths that we bring to the group. We're not alike. We're unique individuals, and so he brings a certain perspective, and I bring another, and we balance each other really well. So it's really important if you can find that kind of a friend and accomplice in the typewriter enthusiast world to help you. I would really encourage that. It really makes a difference. Well, this is Joe Van Cleve, and we had a great time at our kickoff meeting of the ABQwerty Type Writer Society. Our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for February 10th, Sunday, 12 noon at Rusta's Gold Coffee Shop, and hope you guys can make it if you're in the Albuquerque area. And until next time, I wish you the best. Stay creative and have yourselves a great day.